Hello, everyone. We are live yet again. This is one of my authors' chats of the week. And just a couple notes from what's been going on with me recently. I have finally found some time, little scraps of time this week, to begin really writing the first few chapters of my upcoming story. And this will be a progression style dark fantasy, which is D&D meets Witcher vibes. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's going to be a huge cast of POV characters. Running amok, and like I said, having a lot of fun writing the first few chapters of that project. I'm also in the last few days of my special edition campaign. You can see that right there. So I'm excited about the fact that we are going to get some extra goodies through it, and if anybody wants the flashy versions of my Viking Dark Fantasy series, now's the time. Okay, so I'm going to try to connect with my co-host, and we'll be getting ready to talk about books, writing, publishing, and everything in between in just a moment. Let me turn up my volume. Hello, hello.
Hey, hey.
I hear you, I don't see you, and it almost always starts this way. So if you've not done this before, there should be, if I remember correctly, you did. Haha, easy enough. How are you?
Doing well. It's definitely been a minute since I've gone on TikTok Live, so.
It's okay. I mean, well, welcome back.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
I can. And how I kind of run this particular thing is if anybody in the comments post anything either bookish related or has a question that kind of pertains to what we're talking about, I'll make note of that in the off chance that this little app is nice, and I'll repurpose that on my YouTube channel at a later date. Most of the time it works well, sometimes it doesn't work, but that's one of the reasons why I always definitely like to make note of those things. Outside of that, it's pretty conversational, and since you're my co-host today, I'll let you start off by introducing yourself and what you write.
All right. Well, thank you so much. My name is Corwin Michaels. I am a fantasy author for the most part, typically YA and A. I know that there's some distinction between, what is a new adult and what's a young adult. Mm-hmm. And then I've also written a couple of children's books about my dog, but I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a children's book author. Just sort of accidentally did that. That's sort of my whole thing. These are my two books here, Second Soul and Shattered Soul. Shattered Soul just came out about 2 weeks ago. So.
Woo! Congratulations on your new book release.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was fun.
How's that been going for you? Because I can tell you honestly that I'm terrible at book releases. I'm better at playing the long game where it's like I promote over time and things build that way. But yeah, I'm terrible at book releases. So hopefully yours did very well.
It wasn't I didn't make as big of a splash as I wanted to. But I also knew, I mean, the prevailing advice for most authors is to just, write more and then that builds on itself. So I knew really I wasn't going to be pushing too hard until the third book was done. So it's because it's a planned trilogy, although I call it a saga just in case I write more books. Didn't want to time myself in. I don't know, the release was okay. I will say that. If you've done ARC readers before, I mean, I didn't get too many people who left reviews and stuff like that, but it's usually about a 10% return on that. You know what I mean? So, which I'm happy with. I don't leave reviews for a lot of things either. You know what I mean? So I wasn't about to be like, where are my reviews? But no, it was great. I really enjoyed it. I'm honestly more nervous about releasing Shattered Soul than Second, just because I don't know, following up with it, it's just there's something different about a sequel than a debut.
Oh, yeah. That is, yeah. They all have their vibe, especially when you kind of fit that, as you said, the 3-book mold, because you have the first book, you're getting to know everybody, then you have the second book, which you're trying to keep the interest and keep building, and then the third one's that big showdown climax, depending on what you write. And but each of them have their different feels, so it'll be interesting, to maybe hear back from you when you release that third book, if at that point you're thinking that's the end, because writing the end of a series, at least the end of a series for now, is just a different thing too, like you said.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I started writing because I knew where the third the third book was. The third book was going to be the book that I was going to write, and then I felt like I needed to write the information up to that point. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I feel like these are prequels to the story I really want to write, which is the third book. So I'm very excited to like. I've been writing it and stuff like that, so it just feels different because the third book is like what I've always wanted to write. So,
Ooh, that is kind of cool. And sometimes it's the journey. What is it they say? You know, the journey. You're building that anticipation, even as a author. You know, you're building your anticipation for where you want to go. When I started working on my debut series, it wasn't the reason why I wanted to be a writer. I had another series that was kind of my passion project, and I'm still releasing it because it's a longer series. But I held off because I wanted to make sure I knew what I was going to be doing. I knew how to write. I knew what my author's voice was going to be. I had some kind of clue on marketing and publishing. And so I waited for that one. And so I released my first whole series. But I'm glad that I did that because it was a learning curve. And so, as you should know, it's everything about publishing is a learning curve.
Yeah. And it's funny because when I published Second Soul, I just kind of did my own research. You know what I mean? Like I really didn't have any other author groups or circles or colleagues or anything like that. Like it was very much just like okay, like let me read a bunch of these articles, let me read this blog and all this stuff, and I just sort of like, and then and I still obviously made mistakes, but like it definitely was a learning journey. So now I've got like newer authors that I'm like, hey, this is what I did. You should do these things because it's easier here, here, and here. And I love just being able to like pay that forward because it was such a learning experience.
Well, I like the word learning journey.
Yeah.
Because it's not a journey or a travel or a trek that ever has an end. Because it's always changing publishing. You're always learning new things and it's evolving. But yeah, just to start up, there is a lot to kind of take in and figure out. And kind of like what you were saying is, in the beginning, I published my first book back in 2016, which it took me 10 years to kind of figure all that out prior to that. So I was working for like almost a better part of a decade prior. And I did start off with a writing group who helped me with the craft side, but outside of one other author, none of them really knew about self-publishing. So it was kind of almost on my own to figure out beyond, okay, you upload your file here, what else you do? And so that's been changing dramatically now, and there are so many resources for writers out there. But before we get so far into the craft, why don't you tell me, like, what is the pitch of your first book? Who are your main characters?
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, so Second Soul, I usually just say, like, a lot of my readers tell me it gives them Aragon vibes. I think that's the first thing that, like, springs to people's mind. But in this world, there are these creatures called dreamins, and they can invade your dreams from their nightmares and feed off of your emotions. That's, like, the big bad, you know what I mean? It's like the enemy of the book. But about 30 years ago, the war ended, or so the government says. And so the main story is about Callum. He wants to go to university, become a second soul. They're the magic users in the world.
Nice.
And, classic, fantasy story. But then he finds out that his parents are part of a dream-worshipping cult, and they want to sacrifice him.
No.
Yeah, so his whole life gets derailed immediately. He runs away from home, starts to develop magic he shouldn't have. Very classic kind of fantasy thing. Doesn't understand it. He shouldn't have it because you have to be a second soul to even touch the currents of magic on Alvar. It's a whole process that you have to like bond to the planet through like certain prime materials. And so like the whole thing is really just about him uncovering the truth and lies the government's been telling. He meets up with some other people. They form a found family unit. I grew up in foster care, so found family is like huge for me. And so the three of the main protagonists, they sort of have their own little like bit of the truth they're uncovering, and they kind of work together towards the end of the book to kind of fight the big bad, so to speak. But it doesn't end like a much of a cliffhanger. But you do know there's going to be more story. You know what I mean? So it's not quite a standalone. But yeah, I had a lot of fun writing it. So that's kind of the pitch for book one.
Well, I'll let you know that my first book kind of feels like it could be a standalone, because originally I thought it was going to be a standalone, but it was like when I was writing the last few chapters, I've said this like 1,000 times on these lives, went to a writing workshop and came back, and I realized, no, it's a 4-book series. And
Yeah.
so that's why the later books do have like these bigger cliffhangers, and they do flow quickly into each other. But again, it's part of that learning journey. I just didn't know what I was going to do with that first series, and then it transformed into what's been a fantastic first series so far. But yeah, it is kind of interesting how sometimes your first attempt feels very different than your second book, and feels very different than the third, even if you're not writing a series, and they just have their own vibes.
You're absolutely right. There's a whole character in Second Soul that I never planned because I'm a discovery writer.
Oh,
Never planned to have her. She was never in any of my notes or anything like that. Like, the little notes that you wake up in the middle of the night and write. And then as I was writing, I was like, I need my readers to know like what the capital city is like, and I don't want to wait until my main character gets there to have to be like, oh, and this is the capital city. I find that kind of a boring framing story. Mm-hmm. So I decided to have a character live in the capital city, and let's see it from her point of view. And then I literally almost rewrote the book from her point of view because I loved writing her so much. She's just my favorite character. So yeah.
Well, how many POV characters are there then?
So there are 3 POV characters, although
3 main characters. Okay.
Maybe 4, depends on how far you get in the book.
Oh.
And Ren. So basically, how I did it was in Second Soul. This is mainly from Callum's point of view. So a lot of the chapters are his POVs, although you get Loman and Ren as well. Mm-hmm. And then in Shattered Soul, what I did was, this is mostly from Ren's point of view, but you still get Loman and you still get Callum. But the brunt of it is mostly Ren. Mm-hmm. And the third book is going to be mostly Loman, because I wanted to kind of like frame the stories that way. I don't really know why I did that. I just thought it was kind of a fun way to do it. So yeah.
I mean, it helps again change things up, and it like I said a moment ago, each book has its own little vibe, and that kind of also kind of enforces that as well. I'm also very impressed because it always impresses me when people go straight into writing multiple POVs for their early books, because that is something that I held off and only like a year or so ago started branching off into multiple POVs, because I was just like, man, that's a lot of head jumping to go through, and that's a lot of characters to follow at different points. And I love a good complicated plot line, but that takes it not just to a next level, but like the next level.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I didn't really read too many stories that weren't multiple POV. You know what I mean? Like, I was reading, older style of fantasy, science fiction. And so for me, it was kind of like, well, of course I'm going to have multiple POVs. That's the books that I love have that. But it's also very helpful from a framing, from a writing standpoint, because if I want to do a time jump, you know what I mean? Like, I just switch to another POV, and then it doesn't feel quite as jarring to come back and it's been like a month or, a few weeks or whatever it is. So in that sense, it's kind of like in a movie, you know what I mean? Where like it switches to another character's like point of view, you come back and like clearly time has passed, but we don't have to watch them like get ready for bed, brush their teeth, then go to bed, then wake up, get dressed. So you can skip all that because you're seeing the story from another point of view. So I find that very helpful.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's again those pros and cons with all of it, and it is fascinating to see and learn about why people choose, the writing style they choose. And of course, we can always evolve and change our writing styles, depending on work series, where you are in your career. But it is just kind of neat to figure out why we do what we do, especially early on.
You're absolutely right, and funny because like I wrote another. I don't know if you call it. It's like a 50,000 word book. I don't know if that's a short story or not, but
that would be 50,000 would qualify as a smaller, but it is a novel. It's 40,001 words qualifies as a novel.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's a novel then. But it's mostly singular POV. There's like a couple chapters from a minor character's POV. But yeah, it's all, and I did really enjoy writing it as just a singular POV because I really felt like I could get like into his character, a lot more. So yeah, I think you're right. There are definitely pros and cons to it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So with the fact that I'm assuming you're already working toward that third book. I don't know how far along in that process you are. Do you have any idea of when you want to release the third part? Because you just released part two.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to try to get it out before December of next year. Mostly because I would really love to go back to Dragonsteel Nexus. I just literally came back from there
Okay,
over the
we'll talk
weekend.
about that next, but
Yeah. So I would love to have book three ready by then, just so that way I could have like a box set. I could have that sort of thing like ready to go for Dragonsteel Nexus.
Mhm.
But I'm also not going to put a lot of pressure on myself just because book two was so much harder to write
yeah.
because I had to be consistent with the plot and with the lore and stuff like that that I just made up in book one. I mean, yeah, I had my notes and stuff like that, but since I'm a Discover writer, I was like, oh, cool, we'll do that. And then now in book two, I'm like, wait, what did I say about this? What was that name of that road? What was the name of that river? That whatever. So book three, I'm guessing is going to be a little bit more complicated than than I anticipate. But that's kind of the goal. Yeah, maybe December of next year, late
That's why
November, maybe.
you keep good notes. You keep good notes, even if you write and you're just totally in that first draft. Whenever you get to the point of you read through your first edit, that's when you plug in. Okay, this I've named this river. I've named this region. This color eye for this character. This because
It's
it
funny.
does help when you write series. Now, maybe
Yes.
not necessarily as much as for standalones or one-offs, but for a series, woo!
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I've got a copy of my book up there that that one of my friends read when I first published it. She gave it back to me. It's fully annotated, tabbed. There's sketches in it. Like she highlighted lore, background, magic system, like It's very very organized, and I was like stunned when she gave that back to me. Because I basically used it to help me write book two.
We all need that
Yeah.
friend. That is great. I did see, yes, Keith, I did see a comment and it said, did you have a booth slash table at that Dragonsteel Nexus, or did you just kind of attend, or how did you?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a booth slash table. I only did one day, mostly because it's in Utah.
Mhm.
So transparency, one day cost $300 and 3 days cost $900. So that was a factor, but also the fact that how many books do you bring for 3 days, and how much does that cost to ship? You can't fly with that many books. And then it's like, well, if you don't sell out, you gotta like ship those back as well, and then you gotta fly out there, spend time at the hotel. So all the finances kept really like adding up, and then it's like, well, now I need to sell this many books to really even just break even,
Mhm.
which means I need to bring this many books to make a
Mhm.
profit. And then it's like, well, then the more I'm spending on books to get shipped out there and shipped back, am I really even going to make a profit? So
Yeah.
that's just how I think. I really enjoyed the one day that I did. I wish it hadn't been on the first day, which was Thursday. I kind of wish it had been on
Mhm.
Friday, but I didn't get a choice on what day they gave me. But I did pretty good. I mean, I sold a little over 40 books, which is not bad. And I had a bunch of people even like already own my book, bring it into the con and have me sign it for them. There was like several of those that was really great, and then they bought book two and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, I saw his question there or his comment. I had like a reminder on my phone because I've attended Dragonsteel Nexus about 3 years ago, and I was like, okay, how do I get to be a vendor here at this thing? So, and it was amazing. It was incredible. There were so many. I bought so many indie books. Um, I didn't get to meet.
That's
I
how
didn't
you
get to
lose
meet.
the money. As you go and you buy as
Yep,
much as you
yep.
sell.
I had a whole duffel bag that I had to carry through the airport that was so heavy. Ugh, it was a nightmare, but it was worth it. Some really great books. I didn't get to meet I didn't get to meet Brandon this time. I didn't really get to meet Christopher Paolini. I really wanted to meet Ryan Cahill. He's like he wrote The Bound and the Broken, and he
Mhm.
started off as an indie author and got a trad deal. And I would have just loved to pick his brain about it, which I mean I'm sure everyone does. but he's like that's kind of the if I could, that's the trajectory that I would do with this series. You know what I mean? But obviously, I'm nowhere near as big as Ryan or popular as Ryan Cahill got. But we dream.
We dream, and hey, you never know. And sometimes it just takes a little longer, and other people, it happens quicker. But that doesn't mean you can't strive for your dream. And yeah, no, I was having definite that FOMO every time I saw another author that I knew posting about that event, and I was just like, now I live in Georgia, so I have Dragon Con in my backyard, so I can't really complain too much. But on the other hand, seeing something else just as fun over there, I'm like, oh, that sounds so cool.
Yeah, and it was incredible. I mean, it was such a book event. You know what I mean? I've gone to other events where it's like, okay, there's books at this thing too.
Yes.
I've done small book fairs where even that's only been there's only 4 authors there, and it's a bunch of bookish related things. Right. Don't get me wrong, there's still some fantasy, D&D book related stuff, but the focus was on on the books, which was incredible. And I got to talk to so many great authors, made some really great connections. And I even started kind of seriously thinking about Kickstarter. So
yeah, you should. Yeah. I was gonna say because mine's wrapping up, and I think this is less than 7 days now. But yeah, that's another thing that's always a great thing to look into for an author who's trying to figure out ways to fund a launch because publishing is expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
So I was going to ask, I know that you're doing a Kickstarter now. How many Kickstarters have you done?
This is my 4th. Though it's the first time I did one, because the other 3 were for my YA series. And YA is hard to market because it's a totally different animal. You're marketing more, especially since the younger YA, you're marketing more to parents and grandparents in it versus the people who will typically be the readership. Not to say that adults don't enjoy it, but it's a different marketing thing than writing a series for adults. So the one I'm doing now is an adult series. It's a complete series, and I'm doing special editions. So it's so it's a totally different thing, and it's done far better than my first 3. All the first 3 hit the funding that I wanted to, because I'm really just trying to offset as much of that upfront publishing cost for those. And this one is, I wanted to produce a pretty book.
Yeah.
How can I afford to produce these pretty books? Because and get the right artist involved, and have the sprayed edges and the iridescent foiling and all the works. So it's been a fun thing to see, and there are definitely a lot of people who collect those kind of books. So it's reaching a wider group of readers, which is exciting, depending on what I do going forward with that platform.
That's amazing. Congratulations. That's really great.
Well, thank you. Well, like I said, definitely look into that going forward. And if you have any questions, I could try to answer. I'll be happy to try. But
yeah, I mean, I know that I'm not really going to seriously consider it until I've got the 3rd book done. Mm-hmm. Mostly because I know that I wouldn't probably back a Kickstarter for a single book for an author I didn't know. If the series isn't complete and stuff like that. So yeah. So we'll chat though when I get closer to that. I joined the Facebook group Kickstarter for authors or whatever it was called. Mm-hmm. There's a gal who like wrote a whole book about it. So got a plan to do that. And I've got Wraithmark Creative, I think it's called. They're right here in Rochester. They do a lot of like the special edition Kickstarters.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Aragon.
Yep.
Yeah, I know the owner, Bryce. He's a indie author here in Rochester as well. So hoping to pick his brain at some point too.
That's cool. That's definitely neat. It's nice to be able to make those kind of contacts because even if you don't necessarily need to utilize them, it's just nice in the off chance if you have a question, again, those kind of questions, or you build a relationship and you never know what will happen with that. So that is also a great thing. But yeah, when it comes to that, those kind of crowdfunding things, the tricks are typically first books, standalones, or because doing a middle of the series is where it's lull, and completed series, with the exception if you do a special edition, because again, people love pretty books.
Yeah.
All the things awesome. You learn along the way.
I mean, it makes sense. It absolutely does.
So at this point, I mean, obviously you're still trying to wrap up this trilogy as we've talked about multiple times, but do you have any clue if you want to write other things beyond that? And if so, what may be your next project after the end of next year if all things go well for you?
Well, I'm actually writing a few things at the same time right now.
Ooh.
I'm about halfway through a prequel novella in the
Nice.
same universe. One of the older protagonists in this book, I wanted to kind of show how different the world was when she was coming up in the university and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I'm writing that one, which I'm hoping that that's going to be more of like a free novella that I can give people for newsletter magnets and stuff like that. Um, and then I've also fully written a I call it a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy meets D&D.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm a professional DM here in Rochester, which just means that I get paid to play D&D.
My
That's
husband would be
all that
so
really means.
jealous.
It's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. I'm hoping to kind of do more of that in the next year. But basically, the world that I created for D&D, I wrote so much lore and backstory for it on how the world became what it is that I decided to just write a book about it. And it essentially just it's basically like anyone on any planet can become a god, but usually only one per planet becomes a god. Eventually, maybe doesn't always happen. Anyway, but once you become a god or a goddess or whatever, um, you have to follow basically a DMV type situation. Like you have to like fill out forms and get approval and like you have to attend like a whole like symposium and like get lectures and stuff like that and like, you have to like study. And it's very like kind of comedic based. It's kind of middle grade level. Although I've had adult readers like it because it's kind of like that. Like I said, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So it's just about them like being like, I don't really want to fill out a bunch of forms to make my own world, so I'm just gonna go rogue and make my own world. So like a group of like these like five gods and goddesses go rogue. They're getting chased by what I call PRED, which is the Planetary Regulation and Enforcement Division, and they want to like stop them. And there's a whole like backstory with Titans and stuff like that. And I just kind of wrote it to explain why my D&D world existed, and it became a whole book. So I'm considering querying that one and seeing if I can get a trad deal, just because I can do that in the back burner while I write my other thing, which is it's sort of a dark romantasy type book. And the tagline for that is basically, "What if the Fae had guns?" So
I love that.
that one's gonna be that one. I'm having so much fun writing that. I haven't really got to the romance aspect just yet. I'm reading up on some other of my indie author colleagues who do dark romantasy really well.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to like get the vibe or whatever. But basically, just I don't know how much you're familiar with the Fae, but there's like a winter court and summer court. They're like the full-blooded Fae, and they can do magic. So all the half-bloods can't do magic, and they like the full-bloods oppress the half-bloods and make them like essentially slaves. And so this one half-blood Fae finds a way to make a gun, and she's like, "Cool, we're gonna start our own court, and we're gonna start a revolution," and that's basically what happens. So yeah, it's been fun to write that one. So that's my projects right now.
I feel that whole juggling projects thing. And one of my series, the one I've actually finally just started to get to write this week, like the first few chapters, is my uh, progression style dark fantasy D&D meets Witcher, and a little more vibed with some traditional monster lore. But one of my readers group on a different app, they annually, and they're about to wrap up the third one, create monsters. We do a project every year. We co-create a monster, and then I'm going to feature it in this future series. I also then gift them a short story that focuses on that monster that they make. So I'm about to announce tomorrow the finalized creature they did for 25, and that will be the last one I'm going to incorporate in this first book of this upcoming series in a few years. So it is kind of fun.
So cool.
Well, it's fun. I mean, especially like, you get to take something that you love, and I love myths and legends and all that kind of stuff, and have your passionate and write your story about that. And that one was inspired because of the D&D character that I originally created when I played. Now, I don't ask me trivia about D&D. I actually, my husband's the one who went off the deep end, and he loves all that stuff. And so he's the one. I'm like, okay, does this make sense? Does this feel like people who enjoy D&D would love this, or would they toss a table and be like, why would you do this? So
Hey,
I've been picking his brain about some things that would potentially work, potentially not, and some ways I can take what people expect and turn it on its head.
yeah. Well, I mean, you can't. So like, you can use like the out, so to speak, by saying like, well, I can't literally write D&D because I'd get
No.
sued. So this isn't D&D. So if I do it wrong, it's because
D&D
I
like.
don't want to get sued. Yeah. So yeah,
That's that flavor, heavily flavored.
exactly. Because there's like certain races you can't use and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
You
So
can't use tiefling, you can't use that. And the
yep,
sad thing is, like, my main character was a tiefling, so I'm like, well, how can I utilize that kind of concept without stepping on, I can't use the name, can't use that branding, that kind of stuff. I know Travis Baldry turned it into, his tieflings got turned into the succubus. But like,
yep,
you can kind of figure out ways around it, and so that's what I've been playing around with. What do I call this particular group of entity, and going forward and stuff like that. So, yes, copyright.
yeah.
Do not.
Awesome.
You can do fan fiction, and then if you're trying to publish, be careful of people's copyright. Do not take someone's IP.
Exactly. Yep.
But it is fun when you get inspired by other things. So
Absolutely.
what made you, it's one of my go-to questions, what made you, or what was that spark that you had where you realized one day, I'm going to sit down and write a book? Because that doesn't happen for
Yeah.
everybody, and then not everybody follows through. So what was it for you?
Well, I mean, the first thing is I was abandoned by my biological parents, and so I was scooped up by Kentucky. I was born in Kentucky, and they made me, ward of the state, orphan, whatever you want to call it. And so I just kind of grew up in foster care, and Kentucky's education is not great, but I taught myself to read and write, and I really gravitated towards fantasy books, escapism. I sort of molded. I mean, I read early Merlin and King Arthur stuff, Knights of the Round Table, chivalry type stuff. I read a lot of like Sherlock Holmes, and then I started really like going into like that older '80s fantasy stuff, Mercedes Lackey, R.A. Salvatore, whatever you want to, that kind of style, that vibe. Roger Zelazny, and so the thing that really kind of like made that spark was during my foster care years, I had a recurring nightmare. And it was like this same nightmare I had every single night, which I called my dreamin', which was my dream demon. And I sort of carried that with me as I sort of grew up. And then it's so stupid, but I thought that all authors were dead. So I thought, like, when you went to the library to get a book, the person who wrote that book was dead. There were no, you know what I mean? I don't know why my brain thought that. And then one day I was like, cool, where's the next book? And they're like, oh, he hasn't written it yet. It's not been released yet. And that like little click in my head was like, oh, living people can write books. It's such a stupid thing that like a kid just believed, you know what I mean? And the moment that hit me, I was like, oh, I can write a book. And the first thing I wrote was a Magic Treehouse fanfic. I loved Magic Treehouse. The next thing I wrote was probably an Animorphs fanfic. And then I just started making my own OC stuff, and really loved it. In fact, one of my English teachers held me back after class because she thought that I plagiarized my story, and I was like, no, I've just read a lot of fantasy books, so like, you know what I mean? Like it followed a lot of tropes, and it followed a lot of like story beats of like the hero's journey. So like, I could see why she thought that, because I kind of went above and beyond the class assignment because I just loved writing so much. But it was just kind of one of those funny moments where she's like, "Did you write this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, I get that it is similar to a lot of books because that's what I drew inspiration from. That's sort of where I learned that maybe inspiration should be a little bit further away from your source material. a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the thing again, that kind of that fine line of, and sometimes not so fine line of, you can write fantasy and no, you can write elves and dwarves and everybody, and sometimes they're a little more the traditional classic style, what people think of,
Yep.
and other times they're wielding Gatling guns and
Yeah,
swinging,
exactly.
flying in spaceships or whatever. You that's kind of fine, but yeah, just when it comes to things like Cthulhu and other people's that IP, that's where it's just like,
Yep.
you might need to take a few steps to the side on that one.
Yeah, exactly. But then I guess like the big spark that got me actually writing was I just kind of felt like if I didn't do it now, I was gonna regret not doing it. So you regret more the things you don't do than you do
That's
do. So I just figured, why not at least write it? And I've been toying with this story for about 10, 15 years, and I figured let's just actually write this one. And it took me about 3 months to write the first draft of Second Soul because I just wrote every single day, and I just kept writing, and I really, lived in the and like that spark really like blossomed. You know what I mean? So, and that's the advice I always give people. It's like, they're like, how'd you write a book? It's like, well, write 30 minutes a day, write an hour a day, be consistent, and you do that and you'll finish a book.
Yeah, no, I mean that's true. And one of the things I always like to tackle on those kind of things is you don't have to compare yourself to someone else. If someone else posts,
Yeah.
I wrote 10,000 words a day, that's fantastic for them. That doesn't mean you have to do it to be just as
Yep.
successful. So, if you
Exactly.
put 50 words on a page a day, at some point you will get to that 40,000 word mark, or for the 40,001 word mark, and voila, you have a book.
Yep.
So,
Yep. I mean, yes, some days I only wrote like 500 words, and there were other days that I wrote like 6,000. You know what I mean? So, but for me, it really helped because I called it No Zero Days, and it helped me to live in the world. It helped me to like keep myself motivated. And obviously I edited and stuff like that, but it really like motivated me to just get it done because like I'm like, if I don't do it now, I might never do it, and then I'm gonna regret not doing it. So
yeah. So you actually mentioned about editing as you write. Are you someone that actually physically edits a chapter after you write it, or do you kind of just poke around and then move on and then do the editing process a little bit more as a second round? How do you approach that? Because I know everybody, there's so many different ways to write. So,
I mean, I found early on for me, if I got bogged down in like editing the chapter after I wrote it, I would just keep editing and keep retooling and keep retweaking. So I made a rule for myself that I would not read back anything until I got it done. So I just wrote it, and then when it was all 95, 100,000 words, whatever it was, then I reread it back through, which was nice because by the time I got done with the book, I'm like, oh, I can drop these foreshadowing bits in, and then help me with the editing process and stuff like that. So that's how I edit it. Is I have to write it all the way through, and then I'll read it all the way through, kind of like doing small tweaks, and then go back through it again and do some more like major actual editing, like looking for like punctuation and spelling and stuff like that. So
yeah. Also, how do you like to market your books? I mean, obviously you're here on this platform, so there's that. But like, do you have anything that you either think it's kind of fun, or are you one of those people who are like, oh no, it's marketing's marketing? It's like pulling teeth.
So that's a great question. The short answer is I don't know. The long answer is I gave TikTok a really strong go for about a year. I posted 2 or 3 times every single day. I was very consistent. I did all the stuff you're supposed to do, and it didn't really help much. I mean, yeah, obviously you do reach that 1 or 2 readers every now and again, which is great. Like, I never got a viral moment. I never really went big, which is obviously fine. I sort of let that dream go. I like threads. I like posting on threads. I like commenting on other people's stuff. Like I feel that's more organic, which is something I like. I don't like getting in front of a camera and be like, hey, buy my book. I do have a goal for 2026 is I want to get back to posting on TikTok and threads and Instagram, but I want to do it from a contributory
Hmm.
contribution standpoint.
Yeah.
Instead of just being like, here's my book. Isn't it pretty? Do you want to read it? It's got demons, maybe dragons. Who knows? You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Um, I really want to go like, hey, this is how I wrote. This is why I wrote. This
Yeah,
is
people
like
love
what
learning
motivated
about the
me.
journey. Hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like when you're on, everybody again is different, and you have to figure out what works for you. And some people are just talk about their book. Some people almost never talk about the book. And I've seen success everywhere in between. And I'm kind of like that middle. I'm trying to concentrate talking about my books more, but I do like fun things. I love engaging things. I do my questions of the day because I think it's fun. I do these lives because it's like if anybody wants to come in and listen or ask questions, I feel like that's one way to give back to the community. I don't necessarily
Yeah.
feel like I'm going to be one to lecture you on smart marketing techniques or the editing processes because what works for me may not work for you. But yeah, you don't always have to be like book, 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 book.
Yeah,
Except for me
exactly.
right now
For a
because
while there,
I'm
what
writing
I
my campaign book.
oh, yeah. Um, One of the things I really liked doing was I was doing like a joke a day. I
Yeah.
was doing like these little puns that are mostly
Yeah.
book related. So I was doing stuff like, I tried writing a book on cats, but it turns out paper's easier. Just doing a small joke like that, and then, that was fun. I like doing that.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like a lot of my personality and humor doesn't come through when I make a TikTok. 'Cause I'm so worried about like not stumbling over a word or making sure I get it done in like a minute. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I got to get in there and stuff like that. So I feel like none of my personality or humor comes out, which is why I love doing in person events
Mhm.
because I'm just it's a better platform for me to be like, hey, do you read fantasy? Oh, you're at Dragonsteel Nexus. Of course you do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So
Well, and it's kind of like you said, post about your journey, post about like things you're doing and what's worked, and people find that fascinating. And as long as you're not like this is the only way you can do stuff, that
yeah,
people love learning about you. And when you sell them on you, you'll eventually sell them on that for the most part. So exactly. But yeah, people are so interested in writers and the writing life and why how we think the way we think, which I can't I don't know.
it's so funny because like I always hear those like statistics where it's like 90% of people want to write a book, but only like 10% of people do. Like everyone's got a story in them. It's so fascinating to me because like I couldn't imagine not wanting to write, not wanting to read, not wanting to be surrounded by books. But there are some people out there who just don't
Mhm.
read, don't write, and that's absolutely valid and it's a
Yep.
fine way to live. Because I don't like sports, you know what I mean. So like I'm not watching like football or basketball every single
Mhm.
day, and I'm sure there's somebody out there who's like, how could you not? You know what I mean? So it's so fascinating to me because like you get in this bubble on social media where it's like I know all these writer friends and author friends and stuff like that, and they're all on their own journeys, and it's so fantastic. But then in real life, I don't know a single other like actual like author. You know what I mean? So it's like it's such a funny thing where I'm like sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm surrounded by tens of thousands of authors.
Mhm.
So kind of
And it
yeah, I kind of forget that people want to know what
oh
it's
yeah.
like.
And the writing community is, I mean, there is a lot of us in one respect, but we're still very small in another respect. And I don't know, doing at least for me, especially doing things like these lives with other, co-host authors, I've gotten to meet so many people, even if it's just virtually, that eventually I've been able to start meeting those same people face to face at
Ah,
various events and realizing some of them live not that far away from me and actually hanging out then at real places. It's wild, but yeah, no, it's a neat community to kind of get into and connect with in so many different ways. Now the hour is starting to run by, so there are a couple things I always like to ask again if this platform is very
sure.
nice, which recently it had a little stink, so we'll see. Well, hopefully it's nice this
All
time.
right.
But regardless, you mentioned that you're here on Book Talk. You said IG and Threads. Are there where else is if any other places do you hub as an author? Do you have a newsletter? Do you have a website? That kind of thing. Where can people
Yeah, I
find?
mean, I do have a website, CorwinMichaels.com. Amazingly, no one had that domain, so I snapped it up. Um, I tried doing a newsletter. I really should be more consistent with it. Like a lot of the advice you get is like, hey, do a newsletter. Like that's how you like really help build an author, a readership and stuff like that. I'm just so bad at being consistent with that because I feel like I don't have anything to say, so I don't want to like send an email and be like, so here's where I'm at. You know what I mean? So it's easier when you're in the process of writing a book, so you can be like, hey, I'm about 50% done with my book. This is what's going on, blah blah blah. But I just wasn't consistent with it. And I'd love to try to get back onto it. That's one of my goals for 2026 is to be more consistent with that. I think what I want to do is maybe release a chapter of the prequel novella, each week or something like that. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different ways to either offer some goodies and pique interest. And again, kind of what you're talking about doing on some of the other platforms is talk about yourself, talk about, writing journey, say, I have a funny story to tell you this week. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Especially if you like writing some kind of level of humor, you could have fun with it and be cheeky. The thing I tried this year, I'm going to wrap up this month, which means I have to start working on it this week because my newsletter comes out next week. My followers I created, I like these interactive things, and so for the newsletter we're co-writing a short story. And so I fed them a few lines, and then there was because the platform I used, MailerLite, they started integrating like questionnaires and stuff like that. So give them a couple choices. Whichever choice is voted the most is the answer, gets fitted in, and then I feed the next few lines or paragraphs, and then give them another question. And so we've been co-writing this story. Cool. Yeah. So again, the idea is one, to keep interest from people to come back, because it takes us a while to write more often than not, publish a book. Yeah. So how do you keep interest in the in-between? So I thought that was just a fun way to see how the engagement goes. And then when I release the final newsletter this next week, I'll have my question is, do you want to do this again next year, and see what people say now that we've done it once.
That's so cool.
But it does mean a little more time, a little more energy on your behalf, and so time and energy is pretty much money for an author. So we only have limited quantities, so you have to decide how we're going to do that. But yeah,
I'm just to sign up for your newsletter. Cool.
You're welcome to through the thing you click. You know. But beyond that, one of the other things I want to ask: where can people get your books? Are you exclusive through Zon? Are you wide? Do you sell direct? Where can people get them, and what formats are they available in? I like these multiple questions.
Yeah. That's a great. I always forget about audiobooks. So Second Soul is available everywhere. You can do direct through my website. There's an Audible that's exclusive to Audible. And then Shattered Soul, same thing except for no Audible. I haven't gotten the audiobook done for that yet because it just came out like a week ago. So yeah, I mean, pretty much everywhere that you would buy a book, including my website, which I do sign and send out little goodies with and stuff like that. Bookmarks,
paperback,
and stickers,
hardcover, just paperback.
Oh, yeah, paperback and hardcover, as well as ebook, which is exclusive to, what do they call it?
KU.
Yeah, KU, Kindle, Kindle Unlimited. So, which I've been thinking about going wide on both of those too. Because every 3 months you get to like choose to be exclusive or not, and I might try to just go wide. Why not? We'll see what happens.
The thing is, as long as because that contract, and if you miss it, which I did with one when I was trying to take all my books live, I had to wait for another 90 days before I could get it out of that system. And the sad thing was the first book of that series, and I was just like, oh.
Yep. I mean, a lot of people do like it being, what I mean? Like, it's hard because like it's such a prevalent part of like the ecosystem that you're like, what do I do? So, I definitely want to go wide on that. But same thing for you. Can we find all your books direct, all the regular places?
Case in point, my wonderful bookshelf, so all my author's copies. Right now, outside of the ones that are running through the campaign for the next few days, for the special editions, all the other things, paperback, hardcover, ebooks, you can get direct. Most of my audiobooks you can get direct as well from me, with the exception of my YA series, and that's exclusive through Audible. But I took my ebooks and most of my audiobooks wide. just because one, I just didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket, and two, I wanted to be able to try to reach people who didn't rely on Zon and be able to be in libraries. I thought that would be a really neat thing. So that was another push because I wanted to have my ebooks and as many of my audiobooks as possible into the library system. So it has been kind of neat to see how that's been going and everything this past year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So all the things you test out, and now, with the exception of audiobooks, so be warned about that one. With the ebooks, like you said, every 90 days you can take it out that way, and at any point you want to, move them back, you just have to shut down all the other systems, so make sure you shut them, and then you can move them back. You can see what works for you, because depending on genre and subgenre and what people want, sometimes one thing works far better for authors than another. So for me, I just personally wanted to keep it wide. And also, then I can sell direct.
There you go.
Yeah, and recently, because I can sell direct, now I can distribute the digital copies at live function. So the next time you go to Dragonsteel Nexus, if you have that capability, I can tell you some tricks about how people can buy direct from you and get their download for their ebooks right there.
I would love that. That sounds like a great. Yeah, I'd love that. Huh.
Just something to have, because there's always going to be that one person who's like, does it have an ebook or does it have an audiobook? And you're like, yes, actually.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I like that.
Yeah. Fun things you learn.
Yeah.
Fun things you learn over time. So let me ask you, is there, because it's that time of the night, I always like to ask this, and for anybody else who's listening or wants to chime in, is there any topic you wanted to cover that we haven't covered, or any question you had that you wanted to ask but you haven't had a chance, because this is that nice time toward the end of the hour?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I love about writing and talking to other authors is, like you said, it's not one size fit all. You know what I mean? So there's always a piece of advice or a piece of like a thing that you did that worked really well for you. Oh, well, it might not work for you. You know what I mean? But what is the thing that like just worked really well for you? Like what just, whatever reason, if it was like luck, timing, if it was the genre or whatever, like what is the piece that was like is like cool? This moment felt like I got noticed or whatever. It doesn't have to be huge, you know what I mean? But like just that little like moment.
I don't know, like I feel like a lot of my achievements have been one of those long time comings, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint any one thing that's like, oh, it's gotten me this far, and some of that has been little tweaks along the way. Maybe my first book, I had to tweak the cover, and then since then figure out marketing, and some things hit a little closer to home than others for people. But recently, I guess, again, going back, since I'm running that campaign, when I got my proofs in, my original round of proofs in for these special editions, it was just such a neat thing because I've always seen those gorgeous books in like Barnes and Noble, and these wonderful limited edition, special edition things. And as an independent author for years and years, didn't either wasn't available, so really didn't think we could ever get that. And then only recently started learning about there are companies, especially some that are purposely geared now toward allowing independent authors to have those chances to actually have books that are elevated into a new level. And so being able to hold those and see, I was like, I wrote this. This looks,
Yeah.
this is, outside of that first time I held my debut physical book, that was that second time I've ever felt like that stunned wow, and just like that giggling, where it's just like, look at these things, look, I did this, I can't believe this, that's so cool. And, just taking that risk and seeing that it looks like it's paying off. So, that's a neat thing.
Amazing. Yeah, that's the stuff I love hearing about from other authors, because, like you said, so many people say, well, they always couch it, this might not work for you, this might not work for you. That's okay. Like, I'm not asking to, like, do the same thing. I just want to, like, know, like, because it's such a marathon, and having those little, goals, or, like, celebrating those small wins is so important, that maybe you don't realize that, like, oh, because I did change my cover, or I rewrote my blurb, or I happened to, give my book away at a little free library, and then someone picked it up and made a TikTok about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of luck. There's a lot of like neat timing and stuff like that. But I always like hearing like what kind of gave you another like second wind in this marathon. You know what I mean? So the fact that you've got those amazingly pretty books, which I'm going to be checking out your Kickstarter right after this, and sign up for your newsletter. Yeah, I mean, I love that because that's sort of like my next kind of goal. I've already got the art done for some special editions, but I was talking to a couple of people at Dragonsteel, notably ZS Diamati, who's kind of big on TikTok here. I'm completely blanking on his name now. Oh, Brady Hunsaker, who did Depths of Van Off.
Yep.
I talked to him. He's because he's got two different kind of special editions. He's got the one that's got like a matte cover. It's still like very pretty art, but then he's got that like leather bound foil, gold foil, stuff like that. So I was kind of picking his brain about like what's a better thing to do, and he's like, honestly, people love that like leather bound, gold foil, gilded edges, the whole nine, because it's such a pretty book. And because I didn't even think about that. I was like, cool, I've got artwork done for a special edition of the cover, and I was just kind of going to do like a maybe a jacket with the you take the jacket off and just note on the case bound. So I didn't even think about doing a leather bound edition.
So what I did, I didn't. Yeah. Well, the company I'm using doesn't offer a leather bound at the moment, but it does a variety of different foiling. So for the main one, it's going to actually tweak, so it's going to be a little more blue at the base, and the other one's going to be red. But like, so this is the actual cover, and then the art I made the dust cover because I've never had a dust cover. So you get both. You get the dust cover and then the under foil, and then just because some people don't like dust covers, I did allow them to have that cover art, in the inside. So that was one way where I could offer them, and then depending on what you like, what look you want to have or display, because there are people who love to display the pretty books. Something for a variety of people. I've got
my Brandon Sanderson leather bounds up on my desk right now. So
nice.
That's exactly what I want to do. Is like maybe a dust jacket or like with a gold foil on the underneath and stuff like that. So I've got some ideas. We'll see if they play out. But I love that you're able to culminate into that moment. That's really fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, like, and again, every writer has different goals, and what you want to strive for may be different than what I want to strive for. So what is it that you are looking to be like, okay, if I hit this next thing, it could be a book award, it could be on a bestseller list, but what is something that you'd be like, I would love that? A pretty book. What is something that you'd be like, man, that is an amazing achievement?
The thing I want, I don't care enough about being like a household name. I want to get just famous enough that I get invited to play D&D on like NADPOD or Dimension 20 or something like that. Like I want to just like be just nerdy fantasy D&D enough that like they're like, oh, I read your book, I really liked it. Like, do you want to play D&D with me? Yes, I do. You know what I mean? Like that's my level of fame that I aspire to. And obviously, I would love to have a completed series and pretty books and stuff like that. But I think if I was like truly make it, it's if I can make just enough of a slice out of the pie where I'm like, maybe Brendan Lee Mulligan invites me to play D&D, or at least I can initiate it and be like, hey, could I play D&D with you? And he says, yes, cool. Like that is my absolute goal. It's so funny because my fiance will sometimes be like, oh, are you listening to your friends? Because I'll be listening to like NADPOD or Dimension 20 or something like that. I'm like, yeah. It's just like that's because they're such wonderful storytellers, and D&D is such a vehicle for telling a collaborative story that I'm always in awe of like how they like build and build and build, and it comes to like this great crescendo of a finale. And I get that there's editing and stuff like that, so we're seeing a polished product. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely a different media than telling a story through books. But I would just love to just like talk to them about that storytelling process and what are the pros and cons of that type of storytelling than my way of doing it. You know what I mean? So that's when I would say I'd made it, is if I could have my people reach out to their people and then I get to play D&D.
I think that's cool. And yes, I see the Dragonsteel Nexus. Yeah, again, FOMO, I'm glad you've been able to enjoy that. But man, now I'm kind of like have to make a note. I'll be like, I guess it doesn't hurt to apply. And if they say yes, then I have to really like get into like, okay, how am I
Yeah.
to make this happen? But I'll pitch this idea to you because I pitched it to so many other authors who talk about how they love D&D. I don't have the time, energy, or the knowledge capability to do it, but I think this is a really cool idea where someone DMs a live stream thing, probably like somewhere like here, and a one-shot where a bunch of authors play their book characters in a one-shot.
So one of my dream goals is to start a podcast where I do that. I want to like, what's that?
Oh, sorry, you glitched for a moment there.
Oh, sorry. Okay. One of my dreams is to start a podcast. I forget what I had a name for it, but it's basically like me and like, another author or two or three, we DM each other in their world. So like I would have a few people like play characters in my world and we just, do a small campaign of that. And then we switch to them DMing, and playing D&D in their world and stuff like that. It might take some finagling because 5e is not always, the most fluid enough to allow for that sort of thing. Maybe kids on bikes or something like that would be a little bit better. But yeah, I would absolutely love to do that. I think it was called like some like bookshelf D&D or something like that, or
That's
bookshelf
cool.
TTRPG.
Well,
like from the table to the shelf or something.
That's cool. One last idea for you before I know we're wrapping up. But one of the things I did for my YA, or had started, still an ongoing project because I get busy with everything else in my life. But one of the things that I've been trying to do and launch through various rounds for my YA series, because it's a portal, isekai, magical multiverse, lots of fun. I had my husband helped me design specialized subclasses and character sheets, and then I had custom miniatures printed that I hand painted, and I sell them as attachments so people can play the main character in their next campaign.
That's cool.
So if you, as an author, you can go just ponder that one because that may be fun. And next time I see you, you can have like little miniatures that you can sell at events of your main character.
I've got a 3D print. I've got 2 3D printers, and I love that. Honestly, I'd love to make my Dreamins into a monster.
That'd be fun.
Because I think my characters are, they're not like an elf or a dwarf, you know what I mean? So it's kind of hard to like, but maybe I could do a subclass, but like, because the second souls all have different magics, but I think I would love to make like a little monster mini of a Dreamin where you have to fight that. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah. And I did see every time you talk about D&Ds and authors, I see more comments about that as well. We overlap a lot. Again, I'm the one you asked the least amount because I'm vaguely familiar with it. I've played, a couple times, but not like any stretch of imagination of a master of that. I just think it's fascinating. And but thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It's the end of the hour, and I just heard the dog start pacing beyond the door, which means it's time for them to go out, as it is 8 o'clock. They're my walking, living, breathing timers. But thank you so much for hanging out this hour. And as I said, if you ever want to do another one of these down the road, let me know. I do try to schedule them in advance, but I'd love to get reconnect, especially maybe when you finish your trilogy. See how that goes.
Yeah, I'd love to do this again. You're a great interviewer. You've got some fantastic questions. And I'd love to just kind of see how your journey's going as well. I mean, I've loved kind of watching your videos and seeing how you do. And like I said, I'm definitely going to sign up for your newsletter and check out your Kickstarter. That's fantastic.
Thank you. And I'm really excited about your series as well. And by the way, the covers were stunning when you were able to show them a little closer up. I love that first cover. Definitely was eye-catching. Look at that. I think that's really cool.
So
next time I'll have to ask
fun fact about this.
Cover.
I designed this cover myself. I had to brush up on some Photoshop skills. And then for book 2, my friend Miles, who's a fantastic artist, was able to kind of capture my style of exactly what I wanted. Really, really got it so that way they look nice together, So
that's cool. I love it.
So yeah.
Curious of what the third book will look like maybe next year.
It's funny because when I first started designing this, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go over, but I got a lot of like pushback that there was too much white space and it's going to get lost in the thumbnail on Amazon and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I like it. So,
Yeah,
whatever.
there's always a risk with like a white background, but there's some gorgeous books with predominantly white backgrounds. I mean, Lore is one that pops out of my head. It's on my TBR list in the other room, but like a
Yeah.
beautiful, just very pale on pale, but it is a stunning piece. So you just have to do what's right by you and what you like. And down the line, if you ever want to do a re-release with an alternative cover, you can do that too. Why not?
Exactly.
But and I also see the last comment of the night, and bookmarked by Jordy said saw your books at the con. Now he's regretting not picking them up. Well, guess what? Maybe next year. And you said you sold some direct as well, or did I make that up?
You can go to my website, corwinmichaels.com. I will sign it and ship it out to you tomorrow. So
See, there you go. Had to put that pitch in. Put last minute plug. Yep. Okay, but I do have to go. And thank you everybody for hanging out with me this hour. I appreciate all you. And until next time, everyone, happy reading.
Bye.
Bye.